On the day of my wife's company's annual party, I was stopped at the door by security. "Sir, please show me your invitation." The security guard looked at me as if I were a toad trying to sneak into Swan Lake. This faded Taoist robe I was wearing was indeed out of place with the crowd around me, who were dressed in high-end custom suits and evening gowns. Inside the banquet hall, my wife, Su Wanxing, who had become a billionaire CEO, was standing on the stage, bathed in the spotlight, radiant. Beside her stood a handsome man, Lin Tianyu, the son of the richest man in Jiangcheng City. He picked up the microphone, his voice echoing throughout the hall. "Wanxing, that waist disappeared 3 years ago. This is heaven giving you a chance. Marry me, and I can give you the whole world." The whole audience cheered, and the applause was thunderous. Su Wanxing had a hint of difficulty on her face, but she didn't refuse on the spot. My heart grew cold. Just then my phone rang. It was an encrypted number. As soon as I answered, an old and urgent voice came from the other end, carrying supreme authority and a hint of pleading. "Master Chun, please come down the mountain. Dragon Commander, he's not going to make it. The entire nation's power is helpless. Only you can save him." I hung up the phone and looked up at the magnificent banquet hall and at the woman I once loved more than life itself. After 3 years of cultivating immortality, I, Chun Fan, have returned. But it seems that there is no longer a place for me in this world. My name is Chun Fan. 3 years ago, I was an inconspicuous live-in son-in-law of the Su family. In everyone's eyes, I was a good-for-nothing who mooched off his wife. No one knew that I came from a hidden family of immortal cultivators. When I was 18, in order to experience the mortal world, I sealed all my cultivation and entered society. I fell in love with Su Wanxing, humbly and completely. I thought that a simple life was the truth. Until 3 years ago, an urgent message came from my family. My enemies had found me, and I had to return immediately, or there would be a catastrophe. Before I left, I only left a note for Su Wanxing. "Wait for me for 3 years." I thought our love was indestructible, but I didn't expect that 3 years would be enough to change everything. I stepped into the Kunlun Mountains and went into seclusion on a 10,000-foot peak. I tempered my body with the divine lightning of the 9 heavens and finally succeeded in building my foundation 3 days ago. My cultivation was fully restored and even surpassed its former state. I was eager to return, and the first thing I did when I came down the mountain was to find her. But I saw this scene. I no longer hesitated. I pushed aside the security guard who was blocking my way and walked straight to the banquet hall door. "Stop! What do you think you're doing, you charlatan?" Several security guards immediately surrounded me, their eyes fierce. I frowned slightly. Without even looking at them, I took a step forward. An invisible wave of air rippled out from me. Those tall and sturdy security guards, as if hit by a speeding truck, grunted and flew backwards, crashing into the wall and passing out. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on me, the uninvited guest. The smug smile on Lin Tianyu's face froze. Su Wanxing also saw me. The champagne glass in her hand fell to the ground with a smack and shattered. Her eyes were filled with shock, disbelief, and a trace of a complicated emotion I couldn't understand. Chun Fan." Her voice trembled. "It's me." I walked step by step through the astonished crowd towards the brightly lit stage. My steps were slow, but each one seemed to land on everyone's heartbeat. 3 years of ascetic cultivation in the mountains had tempered my heart to be like 10,000-year-old black ice. But seeing her again, a crack still appeared on the frozen lake. You're not dead." Su Wanxing's lips quivered, and her eyes instantly turned red. "I've disappointed you," I said in a flat tone. "You bastard. You dare to come back." Lin Tianyu was the first to react. He pointed at my nose and cursed. "You disappeared without a word 3 years ago and left my sister a widow for 3 years. Now that you see she's a billionaire CEO, you're back to beg for food with a shameless face." He took out a checkbook from his suit pocket, scribbled a string of numbers, then tore it off and threw it in my face. "This is 1 million. Take it and get out like a dog. Don't ever appear in front of Wanxing again." The check fluttered to the ground. This scene was so familiar. 3 years ago, the Su family was the same way, throwing money at me and telling me to get lost. At that time, For Su Wanqing's sake, I endured it. But now, why should I endure it? I smiled. 1 million. I shook my head and looked at Lin Tianyu as if he were an ant. What you call your everything is worthless in my eyes. What the fuck did you say? Lin Tianyu was furious. He considered himself a chosen one. When had he ever been so disdained? I said, I spoke word by word, my voice not loud, yet it carried clearly through the entire banquet hall. Are not even worthy to carry my shoes. The moment I finished speaking, I flicked a finger. An invisible burst of energy struck Lin Tianyu precisely on his knee. Thump! Lin Tianyu, who just a second ago was arrogant and domineering, felt his legs give way, and in front of all the guests, he knelt straight down before me. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Lin Tianyu was stunned. He tried to stand, but found his knees felt as if they were filled with lead, unmoving no matter how hard he struggled. An unprecedented fear and humiliation instantly flooded his heart. What did you do to me? He roared in terror. I ignored him, my gaze shifting to Su Wanqing. Her face was as pale as paper. The way she looked at me was filled with unfamiliarity and fear. Wanqing, when I left 3 years ago, I left you a note. I recounted calmly. I said, wait for me for 3 years. Su Wanqing trembled, biting her lip until it turned white. I waited. Her voice was choked with sobs. I waited for a year, then 2. Everyone said you were dead. So, you were ready to accept him? I pointed to Lin Tianyu, who was kneeling on the floor. Su Wanqing was speechless. That's right. She was now the CEO of the Jiangcheng Group, a prominent figure on the Forbes list. She needed a partner of equal social standing, not a useless husband who had been missing for 3 years, his fate unknown. I understood. I completely understood. The small crack in my heart slowly closed, turning to solid ice once more. Chen Fan, don't misunderstand. Su Wanqing hurriedly explained. Tianyu and I are just friends. Today this was. There's no need to explain. I cut her off. From this day forward, there is nothing between you and me. With that said, I turned to leave. Stop! A furious roar came from behind me. A middle-aged man rushed over with a dozen bodyguards in black suits, surrounding me completely. It was Lin Tianyu's father, the chairman of the Lin Group, Lin Jiangwo. Dad, it's this bastard. Quick, break his legs for me. Lin Tianyu screamed maniacally, as if he had seen his savior. Lin Jiangwo looked at his son kneeling on the floor, his face terrifyingly dark. He stared at me and said coldly, Kid, I don't care what kind of sorcery you used, but if you dare to harm my son today, don't even think about walking out of this door in one piece. With a wave of his hand, the bodyguards pulled out gleaming daggers from their jackets and closed in on me step by step. The guests recoiled in fear, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Su Wanqing was terrified too. She screamed, Chairman Lin, don't. Chen Fan, run. Run? I looked at these so-called bodyguards. In my eyes, they were no different from toddlers learning to walk. I didn't even have the interest to make a move. I just raised my eyes, my gaze passing through the crowd and landing on an old man in the corner of the banquet hall. The old man was dressed in a tang suit, looking vigorous and high-spirited. At this moment, he was holding a wine glass, watching the farce with great interest. He was the underground king of Jiangcheng City, Qin Sihai, known as Master Qin. All the wealthy people present had to respectfully address him as fourth master upon seeing him. I looked at him and spoke softly, my voice not loud, yet it seemed to possess a kind of magic, instantly silencing the noisy hall. Qin Sihai, I'll give you 3 seconds to make these flies disappear from my sight. The moment my words came out, everyone was stunned. Is this kid insane? How dare he address Master Qin by his full name, and in such a commanding tone? Lin Jiangwo was taken aback for a moment, then burst out laughing. You ignorant fool! Who do you think you are? Do you have any idea who Master Qin is? His laughter stopped abruptly, because Qin Sihai, in the corner after hearing my words, dropped his wine glass with a clatter. His leisurely and content expression vanished in an instant, replaced by an expression of extreme shock and terror. He shot to his feet, rubbed his eyes with a trembling hand, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The next second, under everyone's incredulous gaze, this underground king, whose stomp could make all of Jiangcheng City tremble, actually trotted, no, scrambled and crawled, over to me. Then, with a thud, he knelt, more decisively and completely than Lin Tianyu. His entire body was prostrated on the ground, his forehead pressed firmly against the cold floor. His voice trembled uncontrollably. This lowly one, Qin Sihai, was unaware of the great master's presence. I deserve to die 10,000 deaths. I deserve to die 10,000 deaths. The entire banquet hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was petrified. The muscles on Lin Jiangwo's face twitched uncontrollably, and his eyes looked as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. The bodyguards holding daggers were scared out of their wits, the knives in their hands clattering to the floor. Su Wanqing covered her mouth, her beautiful eyes filled with a world-shattering shock. The Chun fan she knew, that gentle, even somewhat timid man, how could he possibly make Master Qin Si perform such a grand gesture of respect? What on earth had he experienced these past 3 years? I looked down from above at Qin Sihai, who was prostrated on the ground, and said flatly, 3 seconds have already passed. Qin Sihai trembled all over, cold sweat instantly soaking his back. He whipped his head around and let out a beast-like roar at the still-dazed Lin Jiangwo and the others. Lin Jiangwo, and all you dogs, are you trying to get yourselves killed? Why aren't you kneeling and apologizing to the immortal master right now? Lin Jiangwo jolted, his soul nearly frightened out of his body. Although he was a billionaire, in front of a truly powerful figure like Qin Sihai, he was nothing. How could he dare to hesitate for even a moment? He scrambled and crawled to his knees, kowtowing frantically while slapping his own face. Immortal Master, spare my life. Immortal Master, spare my life. It was I who had eyes, but failed to see Mount Tai. I deserve to die. His bodyguards were even more terrified, soiling themselves as they dropped to their knees in a large group, kowtowing like pounding garlic. Kneeling on the ground, Lin Tianyu was now completely stupefied. The family background he was so proud of was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of this good-for-nothing he had looked down upon. Immortal Master? Could it be he's really some kind of immortal? This absurd thought rose uncontrollably in everyone's mind. I paid no more attention to these ants and turned to leave. Chen Fan, don't go. Suvankin Fainalidiactive. She rushed forward and hugged me tightly from behind. I could feel her body trembling and the hot tears falling onto my Taoist robe. I am sorry. Shenfan, im suri. Let me explain. She sobbed uncontrollably. My body stiffened. Once upon a time, this embrace was my warmest harbor. But now all I felt was coldness. Gently, yet firmly, I pried her fingers off one by one. Ms. Su, I deliberately used this unfamiliar title. We are no longer people of the same world. Be a good $100 billion CEO, and don't come looking for me again. After saying that, I left without a backward glance, leaving behind only a woman collapsing in tears and a floor full of kneeling magnates. I left the hotel. The night was as dark as ink. The neon lights of the city were nothing but illusory phantoms in my eyes. I had nowhere to go. The place I call home had long since changed. I walked aimlessly along the riverbank, flashes of the past 3 years flickering through my mind. The ice and snow of Kunlun's peak, the roar of the 9 heavens' divine thunder, and my master's final words before his passing. Fanner, your talent is unparalleled, but you have worldly attachments in your heart, which is a great taboo in immortal cultivation. As your master, I will pass on my life's cultivation to you, hoping you will sever your mortal ties and shatter the void soon. Sever mortal ties. I let out a bitter laugh. Easier said than done. Su Wanqing was my greatest inner demon. Immortal Master, please wait. Behind me, Qin Sihai came chasing, panting, followed by a few trusted subordinates holding various brocade boxes. What is it? I stopped, my tone indifferent. Qin Sihai stopped 3 meters away from me, bowing respectfully, not daring to get any closer. Immortal Master, I was unaware of the grudge between you and the Lin family, and nearly made a grave mistake. This is a small token of my sincerity. I hope the Immortal Master can forgive me. He waved his hand, and his subordinates immediately presented the brocade boxes. A villa at Cloud Top Heavenly Palace in the Eastern District, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, and this card. It has 1 billion inside, and the pin is 6/8. Qin Sihai carefully observed my expression. These things, coveted by ordinary people, were no different from roadside pebbles in my eyes. But right now, I did indeed need a place to stay. Leave the villa. Take the rest away, I said flatly. Yes, yes, yes. Qin Sihai felt as if he had been granted amnesty, and he hurriedly handed over a key and a property deed. Immortal Master, if you have any orders in the future, I would die 10,000 deaths to carry them out. I took the key and nodded, which counted as acceptance. Only then did Qin Sihai leave with his men, full of gratitude. Just then, a red Ferrari pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Su Wanqing's pretty face, tear-streaked like a pear blossom in the rain. Chen Fan, get in. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Must you be so heartless? Her eyes were red. 3 years have passed. Everything has changed. Don't we even have a chance to talk? I fell silent. In the end, I opened the car door and got in. The car sped all the way back to the home we once shared. It was an ordinary 3-bedroom apartment, but now it had been transformed into a luxurious, spacious flat. All the furnishings inside had been replaced, without a single trace of the past to be found. The only thing unchanged was the pot of orchid I had bought back then, now in full, glorious bloom on the balcony. Have a seat. Su Wanqing poured me a glass of water, her voice a little hoarse. These 3 years, the company grew so fast, I was too busy. She tried to explain. I looked for you everywhere. I reported you missing to the police, put out notices. I tried every method I could think of, but there was no news at all. Everyone told me you were probably gone. Lin Tianyu. He pursued me for 2 years, and I never agreed. Today was my company's annual gala, and I listened quietly, not interrupting her. Her explanation sounded perfectly reasonable. A woman whose husband has been missing for 3 years, who has become successful in her career, facing an excellent suitor. It's only human to be swayed. But in my heart, something felt wrong. Are you done? I spoke. Su Wanqing nodded. Since you're done, I'm leaving. I stood up. Chen Fan. She grabbed me again. Where on earth did you go? Why have you become like this? And Qin Yi. Why is he so afraid of you? A series of questions like rapid fire. I looked at her eager, yet unfamiliar eyes, and suddenly found it somewhat amusing. Su Wanqing, are you concerned with whether I've been well these past 3 years? Or are you concerned with what the power I possess can bring you? She froze, speechless. Yes, she had already been corrupted by money and status. What she valued was no longer me as a person, but the mysterious power I represented, a power that even Qin Sihai feared. The answer is no longer important to you. I pulled my hand away from her again. This time, she didn't try to stop me. I walked to the door and glanced back at her. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you. 3 years ago, I didn't go missing. I went to cultivate immortality. With that, I opened the door and walked out, leaving her with nothing but my resolute back. I moved into the heavenly palace on the clouds. This was Jiangcheng's most exclusive residential area for the wealthy. Standalone villas nestled by mountains and water, where the spiritual energy was much denser than in the city. Finally, a quiet place to cultivate. I sat cross-legged and began to practice breathing meditation. The foundation establishment stage is merely the entry level in the world of cultivation, but on an earth depleted of spiritual energy, it already makes one a godlike figure. A night of cultivation left me feeling refreshed and revitalized. Early the next morning, a call came from Qin Sihai. Immortal Master, the matter you entrusted to me has been taken care of. The Lin family is bankrupt. His voice carried a hint of someone seeking credit. I wasn't surprised. With Qin Sihai's influence in Jiangcheng, making a corporate group go bankrupt was merely an overnight affair. Lin Jiangwo and Lin Tianyu couldn't handle the blow. One jumped off a building, the other went mad and is now in a psychiatric hospital. I responded faintly. To me, the Lin father and son were nothing more than 2 annoying flies. Once swatted, they were forgotten. There's one more thing. Qin Sihai's tone became hesitant. Miss Su, she's been waiting at the entrance of the villa complex all night. The guard won't let her in. but she refuses to leave. My brows furrowed. My spiritual sense swept over the area, and just as he'd said, I saw the red Ferrari at the gate at the foot of the mountain. Su Wanqing was leaning against the car, her face haggard and her eyes bloodshot. She hadn't slept all night. Why bother? I ended the call and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window. I looked down at the city below, at the bustling traffic and the streams of people. The mortal world, a place of entangled grievances and affections. I had intended to sever it all with a single sword strike, but alas, the threads of karma always remain. So be it. Let me see what it is you truly want. With a thought, I sent a text message to Qin Sihai. Soon, the gate to the villa complex slowly rose. The red Ferrari shot up the mountain like a bolt of crimson lightning. The car stopped in front of my villa. Su Wanqing rushed out of the car, ran to the front door, and desperately rang the doorbell. I opened the door. The moment she saw me, tears instantly streamed down her face. Chen Fan, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me, okay? She moved forward to hug me. I stepped aside, dodging her. Gomein. I led her into the house and poured her a cup of hot tea. She held the teacup, her hand still trembling uncontrollably. The matter with the Lin family. Was it your doing? She asked. Yes and no, I replied. What do you mean? I only said a word. It was Qin Sihai who did it. Suvankin Fedsaident. A single word could turn a $10 billion corporation to dust. The way she looked at me was filled with even more reverence and fear. Chen Fan, what you said yesterday about cultivating immortality. Is it real? She asked cautiously. Do you believe me? I asked in return. She nodded, then shook her head again. I don't know, but I know you're no longer the Chen Fan I once knew. People change. Then can we? Can we go back to how things were? She looked up, a hint of hope in her eyes. I looked at her and remained silent for a long time. Go back. If a mirror breaks, even if you piece it back together, the cracks will always remain. Su Wanqing, I began slowly. The person I used to be is already dead. He died 3 years ago, at the moment you received my note, yet still chose not to believe me. Her face instantly turned deathly pale. My words were like the sharpest of blades, piercing through all her pretenses and excuses. I'll give you a chance. My heart stirred slightly as I looked at her despairing eyes. A chance for yourself as well. What? Jiangcheng Group is currently bidding for that piece of land in the south of the city, aren't they? Su Wanqing's head snapped up, her eyes filled with shock. The South City Development Project was the focal point of Jiang City's next 10 years of engineering. Countless companies were fighting tooth and nail for a piece of the pie. Jiangcheng Group had been preparing for this project for half a year, but their biggest competitor was a behemoth from the capital, the Longting Group. Whether in terms of funding or connections, Jiangcheng Group was at an absolute disadvantage. How did you know? She asked subconsciously. Don't worry about how I know. I said flatly, in 3 days at the project bidding conference, I will be there. If you can win this project, the grievances between us will be wiped clean. If you can't. I didn't finish, but the meaning was obvious. A sliver of hope rekindled in Su Wanqing's eyes. All right, I promise you. She clutched at it as if it were a life-saving straw. For these 3 days, do not disturb me. I issued an order to leave. Su Wanqing gave me a deep look, stood up, and left. Watching her departing figure, I sighed softly. The reason I did this wasn't to help her. It was because I had detected an unusual fluctuation in the feng shui and fortune of that piece of land. Something seemed to be hidden there. 3 days passed in a flash. During those 3 days, Su Wanqing did not disturb me again. I was happy for the peace and quiet, setting up a small spirit-gathering formation in the villa, and my cultivation progressed another step. On the day of the bidding conference, I changed out of my Taoist robes and put on a set of casual clothes that Qin Sihai had prepared. The man in the mirror had sharp brows and star-like eyes, his face as handsome as jade. 3 years of cultivating immortality had fundamentally transformed my disposition, ethereal and transcendent, yet with a touch of indifference from having seen through the ways of the world. I took a taxi to the bidding venue, the Jiang City International Convention and Exhibition Center. The entrance was crowded with luxury cars, and a constant stream of business elites flowed in and out. The moment I arrived, I saw Su Wanqing. She was dressed in a sharp, white professional skirt suit, her long hair tied up, exuding a cool, queenly aura. She was surrounded by a group of company executives, nervously discussing something. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, and she strode over quickly. "You're here." Her voice carried a barely perceptible trace of nervousness and anticipation. I nodded. Chun Fan, the competitor this time, is very strong. It's the young master of the capital's Longting group, named Zhao Shiji. We don't have much hope. A female executive whispered beside me, clearly one of Su Wanqing's confidants. Her eyes, as she looked at me, were filled with curiosity and scrutiny. Su Wanqing immediately shot her a glare. "Directorly, don't talk nonsense." I smiled, paying it no mind. "Let's go in." Our group walked into the conference hall. The hall was already filled with people, the atmosphere serious and tense. We sat down in the seats designated for Jiangcheng group. Just as we sat down, a sarcastic voice came from the side. "Well, if it isn't President Su, what's this? You know you have no hope, so you brought a pretty boy to boost your courage." We turned to look. A young man in a floral shirt, his hair slicked back with grease, and a face full of arrogance, was looking at us sideways. Behind him stood several middle-aged men with powerful auras, clearly the senior management of Longting Group. "Zhao Shiji." Su Wanqing's face turned cold. "Don't be so angry, Wanqing." Zhao Shiji walked over with a smirk, his gaze brazenly sweeping over me. "Is this that useless husband of yours who disappeared for 3 years? TSK, not bad looking. I just wonder, how is he in bed?" His words were extremely vulgar. Su Wanqing trembled with anger and shot up from her seat, slamming the table. "Zhao Shiji, watch your mouth." "What? Did I hit a nerve?" Flying into a rage, out of shame, Zhao Shiji's smile grew even more smug. "I've seen plenty of women like you, pure as jade on the surface, but who knows how slutty you are behind closed doors." Smack! A crisp slap echoed through the hall. Everyone was stunned. Zhao Shiji clutched his rapidly swelling face, a look of disbelief on it. You dare to hit me?" I pulled my hand back and flicked it, as if shaking off something dirty. "Your mouth is too foul. I'm helping you clean it." I looked at him, my eyes icy cold. "You're fucking asking to die." Zhao Shiji flew into a rage, swinging his fist at me. The few bodyguards behind him moved at the same time. I sat in my chair, not moving an inch. I just lifted my eyelids slightly, and bone-chilling, killing intent instantly enveloped the entire venue. Zhao Shiji's fist stopped less than a centimeter from my face, unable to advance any further. He and his bodyguards were, as if frozen by a spell, each maintaining their attacking posture, stiff and unable to move. Their faces were covered in fear and sweat. They felt as if they were being stared at by a prehistoric beast, and with a single thought from the other party, they would be crushed to pieces. "Next time you die." I uttered a single word faintly. My word was law. Zhao Shiji and the others trembled as if they had heard the death god's sentence. I withdrew my aura. They immediately regained their mobility and fell to the ground with a thump, panting heavily. A foul smell emanated from their crotches. They had all pissed their pants in fear. The hall was dead silent. Everyone looked at me as if I were a monster. In that instant, although they didn't feel it as intensely as Zhao Shiji and his men, they too felt a chill that came from the depths of their souls. Who on earth was this young man? Su Wanqing was also stunned, her small mouth agape for a long time. She knew Chun Fan was strong, but she never expected him to be this strong. With just a single glance, he had scared the young master from the capital into wetting his pants. The host of the bidding conference wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and walked onto the stage, trembling. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about time. The bidding conference will now begin." The meeting began, and the process moved quickly. The first few companies presented their proposals, but the response was lukewarm. Soon, it was Longting Group's turn. A middle-aged man walked onto the stage and began to introduce their proposal. It had to be said that Longting Group's proposal was perfect. Whether it was capital investment or future planning, it far surpassed the other companies. The judges below nodded frequently. Su Wanqing's face turned a little ugly. She knew that based on the proposal alone, Jiangcheng group had no chance of winning. Zhao Shiji had also recovered by now. Although his face was still pale, his eyes, when he looked at us, were filled with resentment and triumph. Trash. Did you see that? This is what you call strength. After I get this piece of land, the first thing I'll do is kill you, and then press your woman under me. I frowned, a trace of impatience flashing in my eyes. So noisy. Just then, the representative of Longting Group displayed the last slide of their proposal. It was an aerial view of the land in the south of the city. On the map, an area was marked with a red line. Distinguished judges, our Longting Group will not only develop this area, but more importantly, we have invited the Master of Metaphysics from Hong Kong, Master Li Banxian. Master Li has surveyed this land, and it is a rare hidden dragon raising its head formation that only appears once in a century. As long as we drive the first pile here, we can activate the dragon chi and guarantee the prosperity of our Longting Group for the next 50 years. As soon as he finished speaking, an old man in a tang suit with the air of an immortal slowly walked out from backstage. It was the so-called Li Banxian. As soon as Li Banxian appeared, a wave of gasps erupted from below the stage. It's Master Li. It said that one of his divinations is worth 1,000 gold pieces, and even the richest man in Hong Kong is a guest of his. For a Longting Group to be able to invite him, this project is in the bag. The judges also stood up one after another and bowed respectfully to Li Banxian. Zhao Shiji was so triumphant he was about to float. He looked at us provocatively, as if to say, "What do you have to compete with me?" Li Banxian stroked his beard and walked to the front of the stage with an inscrutable expression, picking up the microphone. "Everyone, I have observed the celestial phenomena at night and have personally surveyed the site. The dragon chi is gathered here, and it is indeed a treasured land. But," his tone changed, "the dragon chi here is suppressed by a baleful aura. Ordinary methods cannot activate it all. Only with my unique secret method, using the heart's blood of a person of pure yang as a guide, can we break the baleful aura and activate our fortune." As he spoke, he took out a Luopan compass and a few yellow talismans from his pocket, looking as if he was preparing to perform a ritual. The crowd below listened, enthralled and convinced. Su Wanqing's face had completely turned ashen. She knew she had lost, utterly defeated, not only outmatched in business competition, but even something as ethereal as metaphysics had become their opponent's killing blow. She closed her eyes in despair. Just as everyone thought the outcome was decided, a lazy voice echoed in the quiet hall. "A hidden dragon raising its head? Utter bullshit. With your paltry skills, you dare to speak of dragon veins? The so-called malevolent aura you speak of is nothing more than the leaking yin energy from a 1,000-year-old tomb. As for your supposed secret technique, it's even more laughable. Using blood of pure yang to draw out yin energy? Are you in a hurry to die?" The voice wasn't loud, but it exploded like a bombshell in the hall. Everyone followed the sound. There I was, with one leg crossed over the other, holding a cup of tea, sipping it slowly, as if those shocking words hadn't just come from my mouth. Insolence. On the stage, Master Li flew into a rage, his beard bristling with anger. Where did this wet behind-the-ears brat come from, daring to question me? He had dominated Hong Kong for decades, revered by thousands. When had he ever been so publicly humiliated? Zhao Shiji also jumped up, pointing at me and cursing, "What does a charlatan like you know? How can you possibly fathom Master Li's abilities? Security. Where's security? Throw this troublemaker out." Several security guards immediately closed in. Su Wanqing grew anxious. She pulled at my sleeve and whispered, "Chun Fan, stop it. Let's go." She thought I was talking nonsense and deliberately causing trouble. I ignored them, simply putting down my teacup, standing up, and walking step by step toward the high stage. The guards tried to stop me, but I just gave them a casual glance. They froze on the spot, as if petrified, unable to move. I walked to the front of the stage, looked at the furious Master Li, and smiled. You call yourself a master. Did you know that the ancient tomb you mentioned is a cenotaph of the king of Guangling from the Han Dynasty? The owner of the tomb died a violent death, and his resentment, soaring to the heavens, has not dissipated for 1,000 years, thus forming this een and malevolent energy. The needle of your compass isn't pointing to any dragon vein, but to the location of the main coffin in the tomb. If you truly dare to drive the first stake there, disrupt the tomb's feng shui, and cause the corpse to reanimate, then not just you, but everything within a 10-mile radius will become a living hell. With every sentence I spoke, Master Li's face grew a shade paler. By the time I finished my last sentence, he was ashen-faced, trembling like a leaf in the wind. He stared at me with eyes full of fear and disbelief, because what I said was identical to the forbidden arts recorded in his Grandmaster's notes. It was a domain that their lineage was absolutely forbidden to touch. He had always thought it was just a legend, never expecting it was actually real. "You? Who on earth are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "You are not worthy of knowing who I am." I paid him no more mind and turned to face the judges and the crowd below. "I want this land." My voice was calm, yet it carried an undeniable authority. "On what grounds?" Zhao Shiji roared, unconvinced. "On the grounds," a smirk played on my lips, "that I can solve problems you cannot." As soon as the words fell, I formed a sword finger and slashed through the air before me. Ordnance! With a soft cry, a golden talisman materialized out of thin air. The moment the talisman appeared, the temperature of the entire hall seemed to rise by several degrees. A vast and righteous energy rippled outwards. Everyone felt as if they were basking in a spring breeze, their spirits lifted. "Go!" I flicked my finger. The golden talisman transformed into a streak of light, pierced through the convention center wall, and shot towards the southern part of the city. No one knew what had happened. They only saw a flash of golden light, and then nothing. Mystifying theatrics. Zhao Shiji sneered. "You think you can scare anyone by drawing some silly talisman?" The crowd below also began to murmur, most thinking I was just being deliberately mysterious. Only Master Li on the stage, his pupils contracted, stared fixedly in the direction the golden light had disappeared, muttering to himself, drawing a talisman in midair, materializing vital energy. These are the methods of a terrestrial immortal. With a thud, he fell to his knees again, kowtowing in the direction of my departure. This disciple had eyes but failed to see a true immortal. My sins are worthy of 10,000 deaths. This time, no one dared to laugh at him, because at that very moment, the large screen in the hall was live-streaming drone footage of the Southern City plot. Originally, a faint, ever-present layer of mist shrouded the area, giving it a somewhat gloomy appearance. But just now, a golden light had descended from the sky and disappeared into the ground. Immediately after, the entire land seemed to tremble once. That layer of gloomy mist, like ice and snow under a scorching sun, instantly vanished without a trace. Wisps of purple chi, visible to the naked eye, steamed up from beneath the ground, converging into a lifelike, illusory dragon. It coiled into the sky, let out a silent roar, and finally transformed into specks of golden light, merging into the sunlight. The sun shone brightly, and the earth was rejuvenated. The entire South City district seemed to be injected with infinite vitality. The aerial footage clearly displayed this miraculous scene to everyone present. The entire venue was deathly silent. Everyone was dumbfounded, their minds blank. A deity. These were absolutely the methods of a deity. Zhao Shiji slumped in his chair, his face ashen. He knew he was finished. The Longting group was also finished. He couldn't dare to imagine the consequences of offending a true immortal. Su Wanqing was also stunned. She covered her mouth, tears shimmering in her beautiful eyes. She finally understood what Chun Fan had meant the day before. "I wasn't missing, I went to cultivate immortality." It turned out that everything he said was true. He really had become a deity, and she had almost pushed her own god away with her own hands. Endless regret engulfed her like a tide. The result of the bidding was no longer in suspense. The committee announced on the spot that the South City project was awarded to the Jiangcheng group. No one had any objections. It was a joke. Who would dare to compete for a project with a true immortal who could bring a drawing to life? As Su Wanqing signed her name on the contract with trembling hands, she felt like she was in a dream. A project she had never even dared to dream of had fallen into her hands so easily. And all of this was just because of one sentence from that man, one talisman. After the meeting, Su Wanqing rushed out of the venue like a madwoman, trying to find me. But I had long since disappeared. I returned to the cloud-top heavenly palace. Resolving the negative energy of that piece of land in South City was a trivial matter for me. I didn't destroy that Han Dynasty tomb either. I simply used a talisman to suppress the energy and release the lingering soul of the tomb's owner. From now on, that land would truly become a place of auspicious feng shui. By doing this, I considered it repaying the favor to Su Wanqing for taking care of my parents for the past 3 years. Yes, although I'm married into the Su family, my parents are still alive. In these 3 years, although Su Wanqing held resentment towards me, she would visit my parents with gifts during holidays and festivals, fulfilling my filial duties for me. I kept this in my heart. Now, with the project secured, our debts are cleared. From now on, she and I have nothing to do with each other. I sat cross-legged, preparing to continue my cultivation. After foundation establishment comes the golden core. Once the golden core is formed, one can fly on a sword and have a lifespan of 500 years. Only then can one be considered to have truly stepped through the gates of immortality. But the spiritual energy on earth is depleted, making the formation of a golden core as difficult as ascending to heaven. Unless one could find a legendary grotto heaven or blessed land, or heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. I scanned with my divine sense. It was Su Wanqing. She was holding a thermal lunchbox, a trace of apprehension and anticipation on her face. I did not open the door. She just kept waiting at the entrance. From noon until dusk, the twilight sun stretched her shadow long, making her seem somewhat lonely and desolate. I sighed softly in my heart. Ultimately, I still opened the door. "Can I help you?" My tone was indifferent. I made you some food." She held up the lunchbox in her hand. "Your old favorites, sweet and sour pork ribs, and Westlake fish in vinegar sauce." The familiar dish names made my heart tremble slightly. Those are the best memories she and I once shared. "Gourmet." I stepped aside. She walked into the dining room and set the dishes out one by one. The aroma was tantalizing. It was still the same familiar taste. "Try it. I hope my cooking hasn't gotten rusty." She served me a bowl of rice, a hint of nervousness in her eyes. I picked up my chopsticks and took a piece of the pork ribs. Upon tasting it, it was perfectly sweet and sour, crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It was identical to the taste in my memory. "Is it good?" she asked. I nodded. She smiled, a smile like a child's, as if my single word of affirmation meant she had the whole world. We ate the meal in silence. Neither of us spoke. After dinner, she took the initiative to clear the dishes and take them to the kitchen to wash. Watching her busy figure in the kitchen, I felt a sense of déjà vu. It was as if I had returned to that small, simple, yet warm home from 3 years ago. "Chun Fan," she said, walking out after washing the dishes, holding a document. "What is this?" I asked. "A share transfer agreement." She pushed the document in front of me. "I've transferred 50% of the Jiangcheng Group's shares to your name." My brow furrowed. What is the meaning of this? "Without you, the Jiangcheng Group would not be where it is today." She looked at me, her eyes sincere. "This company should have been half yours to begin with." "I don't need it." I pushed the documents back. Money, to me, was already like dirt. She seemed not to have expected my refusal to be so blunt, and for a moment, she was at a loss. "Su Wanqing," I looked at her. "I helped you only to repay a favor. Now, the favor is repaid. It's time for us to make a clean break." From the drawer, I took out a document I had prepared long ago. This is a divorce agreement. The word divorce, like 2 poison-laced daggers, stabbed viciously into Su Wanqing's heart. The color instantly drained from her face. "No, I don't want to." She shook her head desperately, tears rolling down like pearls from a broken string. "Chun Fan, you can't do this to me." "Why can't I?" I looked at her, my gaze as calm as still water. 3 years ago, when you thought I was dead and were ready to accept someone else, we were already over. "That's not true. I didn't," she retorted emotionally. "I never agreed to Lin Tianyu. My heart has only ever had you." "Is that so?" I sneered. Then why didn't you refuse him in front of everyone? Her mouth opened, but she couldn't utter a single word. Yes, why didn't she refuse? Was it because of vanity? Was it because she wavered? Or was it because she had grown accustomed to the feeling of being the center of attention? Even she herself couldn't say for sure. Sign it. I passed the pen to her. It's a release for both you and me. No. She suddenly tore the divorce agreement on the table to shreds. I'll die before I sign it. She threw herself at me like a madwoman, clinging to me tightly. Fan, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? Please, I'm begging you. Let's start over, just like before. I don't want anything anymore. I don't want the company. I don't want money. I just want you. She cried, her heart breaking. I didn't move, letting her hold me. Inside, however, my heart was a sheet of ice. A broken mirror cannot be made whole again. Just then, my phone rang again. It was the same encrypted number. I answered the call. On the other end came the anxious voice of Dragon Commander's aide. Master Chun, this is bad. The Dragon Commander. He refused the talisman water you bestowed last time, saying he doesn't believe in such superstitions. Now, the strange illness in his body has erupted again, and his vital signs are about to disappear. The expert team at the Military General Hospital has already issued a critical condition notice, telling us to prepare for his passing. My brow furrowed. The Dragon Commander, the anchor of Huaxia, a lifetime on the battlefield, protecting the nation and securing its peace. If he were to fall, a pillar of the state would collapse. 3 years ago, when my master was traveling, he had a chance encounter with him and predicted that he would face a life-or-death calamity in 3 years. My purpose in coming down the mountain this time, besides finding Su Wanxing, was to resolve this karmic debt. Before descending the mountain, I had remotely drawn a life-extending talisman and had someone take it to the capital. I hadn't expected him to be so headstrong as to not believe it. Now, the calamity had arrived, and not even the gods could save him. Understand, I said faintly. Master Chun, you must save the Dragon Commander. I hung up the phone. It wasn't that I didn't want to save him, but it was too late. The capital was 1,000 miles away. Even if I were to fly there on my sword immediately, it would take half an hour. In half an hour, the Dragon Commander's life force would have long been extinguished. What's wrong? Did something happen? Su Wanxing noticed the change in my expression, stopped crying, and asked nervously. I didn't answer her. I just walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looked in the direction of the capital, and sighed softly. So be it. Let this be my repayment for the grace of this land that raised me. I extended my right hand, pressing my index and middle fingers together, and began to trace in the empty air. Strands of golden light flowed from my fingertips, weaving into an incomparably profound rune. This rune was 1,000 times more complex than the one I had displayed at the bid-letting conference. As the rune took shape, all the spiritual energy in the villa began to converge madly at my fingertips. In the sky, winds surged and clouds gathered, lightning flashed and thunder roared. An indescribable and terrifying pressure emanated from my body. Su Wanxing was forced back again and again by this pressure, finally collapsing to the floor, looking at me with a face full of horror. She felt that the one standing before her at this moment was not a person, but a god who commanded the heavens and the earth, whose words were law. By the supreme edict, the 9 revolutions' sole return. 3 hun return to your place. 7 per return to your origin. From 1,000 miles away, borrow a life for rebirth. Edict. I opened my eyes abruptly, a golden light bursting forth from them. The rune at my fingertip instantly transformed into a golden pillar of light that pierced through heaven and earth, tearing through the void and vanishing without a trace. After doing all this, my face turned slightly pale. This technique, borrowing life from 1,000 miles, was an art that defied the heavens and changed fate. Even for me, executing it was mentally taxing. Chun Fan. You. Su Wanxing stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. I withdrew my hand and turned to look at her. Now, do you still think we are people of the same world? She stared at me blankly and slowly, shook her head. In her eyes was endless despair and a deathly stillness. Indeed, One was a living, true, immortal who could overturn the heavens and change fate. The other was a mortal CEO attached to the mundane world of money and fame. What separated us was no longer just 3 years of time and distance. It was a heavenly chasm named Immortal and Mortal. Beijing Military General Hospital. Outside the highest-level special care unit, a crowd of people waited anxiously. There were high-ranking military officials in generals' robes with gold stars on their shoulders. There were also political and business titans in suits and leather shoes who could make the entire nation's economy tremble with a stomp of their foot. But at this moment, grief and helplessness were etched on all their faces. Inside the hospital room, the drip-drip sound from various top-tier medical devices grew fainter and fainter. The old man lying on a hospital bed had an ashen complexion, and all signs of life were gone. He was the guardian of Huaxia, the Dragon Marshal. Prepare for it. The white-haired hospital director took off his stethoscope and shook his head sorrowfully at the Dragon Marshal's family. The Dragon Marshal is gone. In an instant, the corridor was filled with earth-shattering cries. The central pillar of all of Huaxia had collapsed. However, just as everyone was plunged into despair, a golden pillar of light, invisible to the naked eye, penetrated the hospital roof, passed through numerous obstacles, and with pinpoint accuracy, entered the spot between the Dragon Marshal's eyebrows. The next second, a miracle occurred. On the electrocardiogram, the heartbeat curve that had flatlined suddenly jumped violently. Beep, a piercing sound, and then beep, beep, beep. The faint but regular sound of a heartbeat started again. On the bed, the Dragon Marshal, who had been breathless, began to show a slight rise and fall in his chest. His ashen face also regained a trace of healthy color at a speed visible to the naked eye. How is this possible? The director and all the doctors were stunned, thinking they were hallucinating. Quick, look at the vital signs monitor. Everyone immediately looked at the screen. Blood pressure rising, heart rate recovering, blood oxygen saturation normal. All the data were returning to normal levels at an unbelievable speed. A miracle. This is a miracle in the history of medicine. The director was so moved that tears streamed down his old face. The people outside the room went from great sorrow to great joy. The Dragon Marshal is alive. The Dragon Marshal is alive. Cheers echoed throughout the entire hospital. No one knew that all of this originated from the casual point of a young man's finger from 1,000 miles away. Jiangcheng, cloud, top heavenly palace. Su Wanqing left, utterly disheartened. She didn't cry or make a scene anymore, because she knew that nothing could be undone. After witnessing that miraculous scene with her own eyes, all the unwillingness and obsession in her heart had turned into a deep sense of powerlessness. The difference between immortal and mortal was like the judgment between clouds and mud. She didn't even have the right to look up to him. The villa returned to silence once more. I sat cross-legged, recovering the true essence I had just consumed. Although borrowing life from 1,000 miles was miraculous, it only treated the symptoms, not the root cause. The strange illness within the Dragon Marshal's body was an extremely rare ancient curse. To eradicate it, I had to act personally. It seemed the trip to Beijing was inevitable. Moreover, the slight disturbance from the ancient tomb in the southern part of the city also made me vaguely uneasy. Although Earth's spiritual energy was depleted, it had once been a place where the civilization of immortal cultivation flourished. No one knew what demons, monsters, or legacy grottos were still hidden in those untouched corners. I had to increase my strength as soon as possible. At the very least, I had to reach the Golden Core stage. Otherwise, if I encountered real danger, let alone protecting others, I would likely have trouble even protecting myself. The next morning, a motorcade of Hongqi cars with special license plates stopped quietly outside the cloud-top Heavenly Palace Villa area. A car door opened, and a middle-aged man in a Zhongshan suit stepped out. He had a refined temperament, but his brow carried the authority of someone long accustomed to being in a high position. Behind him followed a valiant-looking young woman in a military uniform. On her shoulders, she wore the rank of major, with 2 bars and 1 star. "Chief, this is the place," the woman said in a low voice. The middle-aged man nodded, looked up at the villa on the mountaintop, a trace of awe and anticipation flashing in his eyes. Let's go. We'll head up the mountain to pay our respects to Master Chun. 13. Qin Sihai received the news immediately. When he learned the identity of the visitors, he was so frightened he nearly fell out of his chair. These were people from the very center of Chinese power, truly important figures. He didn't dare to show the slightest neglect, personally driving a sightseeing car to welcome the two up the mountain. Immortal Master, someone from the capital, is here. Qin Sihai stood at my door, reporting stammeringly. I opened my eyes and slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. Let them in. Soon, the middle-aged man and the young woman, led by Qin Sihai, walked into the villa. I am Yi Qingtian. It is an honor to meet Master Chun. The moment the middle-aged man saw me, he bowed respectfully, his posture extremely humble. The female major behind him also snapped to a standard military salute, but her eyes, as she looked at me, were filled with curiosity and a hint of defiance. She couldn't understand why her own grandfather, and this Uncle Yi who held immense power, would be so deferential to a young man who looked even younger than herself. Ye Vingtian. I size him up. You are Dong Shun, the head of the four war gods under Dragon Commander. Yi Qingtian's heart skipped a beat. It had been many years since anyone had called him by that title. He became even more certain that the young man before him was undoubtedly the reclusive master of legends. Master has sharp eyes. That is indeed me. Seat. I pointed to the sofa. Yi Qingtian sat down cautiously, not even daring to breathe loudly. Speak. What business brings you to me? Master, I have come regarding the matter of the Dragon Commander. Yi Qingtian got straight to the point. Yesterday, Master used your divine abilities to pull the Dragon Commander back from the gates of hell. We will never forget such a great kindness. I have come today first to thank you on behalf of the Dragon Commander and the highest levels of leadership for saving his life. Second, I have come to implore Master to personally make a trip to the capital to eradicate the Dragon Commander's ailment. As he spoke, he stood up and once again bowed deeply to me. As long as Master is willing to help, we can agree to any condition. I didn't answer immediately. My fingers tapped lightly on the armrest. If I intervene, the curse within the Dragon Commander's body can be broken. But I have two conditions. Master, please state them. Ye Qingtian's Sipirits liftet. First, I want access to all of China's forbidden areas that are not open to the public, and to review all confidential archives concerning the ancient era. I needed to find clues about grotto heavens, blessed lands, and heavenly materials and earthly treasures. These things were most likely to exist in those unexplored restricted zones or be recorded in the nation's top-secret archives. Upon hearing this, Yi Qingtian looked troubled. Those forbidden areas and archives were all related to the highest national secrets. Even someone of his rank had no authority to enter them at will. But seeing my indifferent gaze, he gritted his teeth. All right, I agree. I can apply to the highest authorities for a special pass. And the second condition? I smiled slightly, my gaze falling on the defiant female major behind him. Second, I want her to be my guide and liaison. What? The female major, Yi Linger, exploded on the spot. On what grounds? I am the vice captain of the Dragon Fong Special Forces team, a blade of the nation. I'm not here to be your nanny. She glared at me, her face filled with anger. In her eyes, this was a naked humiliation. Yi Qingtian's expression changed, and he immediately reprimanded her. Linger, do not be rude to the master. Only he. Silence. Yi Qingtian cut her off sternly. That is an order. Yi Linger's eyes reddened with anger, but a soldier's duty forced her to bite her lip and reply unwillingly. Yes, sir. I looked at her expression and found it somewhat amusing. My reason for choosing her wasn't what she thought. It was simply because I sensed a very special, pure, energy from her. This kind of constitution was one in a million, an excellent vessel for cultivating certain special techniques. Of course, when I said vessel, I wasn't referring to the evil art of absorbing yin to supplement yang. Rather, she could serve as a medium for guiding and storing spiritual energy. With the scarcity of spiritual energy on Earth, Having her with me would allow me to achieve twice the result with half the effort when setting up formations or refining elixirs. You're unwilling? I looked at her with a half smile. I will obey the order. Yi Ling'er squeezed the words through her teeth. Very good. I nodded. Then it's settled. You may go back for now. In 3 days, I will go to the capital. Yes. Thank you, master. As if granted amnesty, Yi Qingtian quickly took his leave with a very reluctant Yi Ling. After they left, Qin Sihai sidled up, a fawning look on his face. Immortal master, you are truly divine. Even the big shots from the capital are so respectful to you. What is it? I glanced at him. Immortal master, this humble one dares to ask a favor of you. Qin Sihai said, wringing his hands, his face full of expectation. Speak. My good-for-nothing grandson. He's 20 this year and loafs around all day. I was thinking, I want him to follow you, to serve you tea and water, to be at your beck and call, and to broaden his horizons. I looked at him. This old fox is quite the schemer. He wants his grandson to become my disciple. I was about to refuse. But on second thought, on this earth, I will eventually need an agent to handle worldly affairs. Qin Sihai is not bad, but he is old, after all, with limited energy. Training a disciple wouldn't hurt. Have him come see me. Yes, right away. Thank you, immortal master, for granting my wish. Qin Sihai was so excited he almost knelt, scrambling out to make a phone call. Soon, a young man with bleached blonde hair, wearing ripped jeans and a rebellious look on his face was dragged before me by the ear by Qin Sihai. You little brat, kowtow to the immortal master now. Qin Sihai kicked the back of his knee. The young man staggered and almost fell, but he still craned his neck, a look of defiance on his face. Grandpa, what are you doing? I'm not kowtowing to some charlatan. His name was Qin Feng, spoiled since childhood, a well-known rich wastrel in Jiangcheng City. You unfilial son, are you trying to anger me to death? Qin Sihai trembled with rage. I waved my hand, signaling him that there was no need for that. I looked at Qin Feng and said lightly, do you want to fly through the sky and tunnel through the earth to live forever, just like in the movies? Qin Feng was stunned for a moment, then sneered. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? There are no such things as immortals in this world. I smiled. I stretched out my right hand, aimed at a rockery in the courtyard, and made a grasping motion in the air. Boom! A loud crash. The massive rockery, weighing several tons, was actually uprooted and flew into mid-air. Then in my palm, it was kneaded into a fine powder by an invisible force. Swish! The stone powder drifted down from the sky like a shower of gray snow. Qin Feng's mouth was wide enough to fit an egg. The defiance and disdain on his face vanished in an instant, replaced by utter shock and fanaticism. Immortal! With a thud, he dropped his knees and began to kowtow frantically to me. Master above, please accept this disciple's obeisance. 15. 3 days later, in the capital, a military transport plane landed at the western suburbs airport. I descended the gangway with Qin Feng and Yi Ling'er, who had come pick us up. Outside the airport, a convoy of audis with military license plates was already waiting. Master Chun, Dragon Commander, is already waiting for you at the General Hospital. Although Yi Ling'er still didn't look pleased to see me, her tone was finally a bit more respectful. Over the past 3 days, she had used military channels to thoroughly investigate my recent activities. From the shocking meal at the annual meeting to settling the universe with a single talisman at the bidding conference. Every single incident had overturned the worldview she had built over more than 20 years. She had to admit that this seemingly ordinary young man before her might truly be a master possessing extraordinary power. Notarus. I waved my hand. First, let's go see this forbidden zone you mentioned. What? Yidling was stunt. But Dragon Commander, I've saved his life. He won't be dying anytime soon, I said flatly. But my time is very precious. Yi Ling'er was choked speechless by my words and could only reluctantly take out her phone to request instructions from her superiors. The order came down quickly. Follow all of Master Chen's arrangements. The convoy turned around and headed towards the depths of the Yin Mountains, northwest of the capital. There, in that place, was the location of one of Huaxia's most mysterious organizations, Area 51. Rumor had it that it housed all the files on supernatural events that couldn't be explained by science, as well as items unearthed from ancient ruins that did not belong to this era. After passing through multiple checkpoints and verifications, the car finally drove into a massive underground base. The interior of the base had a science fiction feel to it, with all kinds of sophisticated instruments I couldn't name and researchers in white lab coats hurrying about. Yi Qingtian was already waiting there. Master Chun, you've arrived. He led us to the front of a huge warehouse made of a special alloy. At the warehouse entrance, 2 rows of soldiers armed with live ammunition stood guard. This is our highest level S-class archive. All the data concerning ancient civilizations and supernatural phenomena is inside. Yi Qingtian opened the heavy alloy gate with his iris and fingerprint. Behind the door was a huge space filled with rows of shelves. On the shelves were various ancient scrolls and some peculiar items preserved in special containers. Master, please feel free to look around. Linger will accompany you here. After saying that, Yi Qingtian tactfully withdrew. Qin Feng followed behind me, looking at everything with novelty, like Grandma Lu visiting the Grandview Garden. Yi Linger, with her arms crossed, leaned against the doorway, looking like a supervisor. I ignored them and walked straight to a row of bookshelves. My divine sense, like the most precise scanner, quickly swept across the ancient texts. An examination of the strange beasts in the classic of mountains and seas, the secret biography of King Mu of Zhou, notes of an ancient Qi refiner. Most of them were later generations' speculations and fabrications of little value. But soon, my attention was drawn to a set of bamboo slips in a red sandalwood box. On the bamboo slips, for characters were written in ancient tadpole script. Investiture of the Gods, Fragment. 16. My heart stirred. The investiture of the gods. Isn't that something from myths and legends? I picked up the bamboo slips and unrolled them. A vast, ancient aura rushed towards me. The bamboo slips did not record the story from the investiture of the gods. Instead, it was a scattered record of a world-shaking war in ancient times. Extraterrestrial demons descended upon the world, seeking to seize its source. The gods and Buddhas of all heavens rose up to resist. Blood flowed like rivers, and stars fell from the sky. The Kunlun ruins was the final battlefield. Immortals and gods shed their blood, sacrificing themselves to suppress the demons. The world's source shattered, spiritual energy depleted, the path to immortality severed. The record on the bamboo slips ended here. But these few words shook my mind to its core. Extraterrestrial demons? The world's source? This coincided with my master's speculations. My master once said that Earth's ancient times must have been a prosperous era for cultivation. But for some unknown reason, the spiritual energy suddenly dried up and the lineage was broken. It now seemed that it was due to a great catastrophe, and these so-called extraterrestrial demons were probably invaders from other cultivation planes. I put away the bamboo slips and continued searching. Soon, I found a tattered piece of animal hide map in a corner. The map depicted the mountains and rivers of China. Among them, 3 places were marked with special symbols in vermilion. One was the Death Valley deep within the Kunlun Mountains. Another was the No Man's Land in Shenanjia. And the last one was, surprisingly, a vortex on the coast of the East China Sea named Guishu. Beside the map, there was a line of small characters. The 3 eyes of heaven and earth, the source of spiritual energy. I was ecstatic. These 3 places were very likely the grotto heavens and blessed lands my master spoke of. As long as I find these 3 places, I have a chance to form the golden core in a short amount of time. Found it. I put away the map in a great mood. Hey, what are you looking for? Yi Linger couldn't contain her curiosity and walked over. Something to make you shut up. Ich glänzte her. You. Yi Linger was choked with anger. I paid her no more attention and said to Qin Feng, take these few things with you. I pointed to the bamboo slips, the map, and a few ores that looked like meteorites but emitted a faint spiritual energy. Yes, master. Qin Feng quickly and carefully packed the items. Let's go to the hospital. I was in a great mood, ready to resolve the matter with Dragon Commander. When we walked out of the base, Yi Qingtian immediately came forward. Master, did you find anything? Yes. I nodded. Let's go to the hospital. The group got into the car again and headed towards the military general hospital. On the way, I closed my eyes to rest, but my mind was planning the next steps. The Kunlun ruins, I just came down from there, so I could go there first. Shenangjia has been full of mysterious legends since ancient times. It must not be simple either. As for the east, China sees Guishu. According to legend, it is the place where all rivers converge, where all waters return, connecting to another world. It seems this earth is much more interesting than I imagined. Military General Hospital. Our group arrived at Dragon Commander's ward without any obstruction. In the ward, beside the few top medical experts, there was an old Taoist priest with a white beard and hair, exuding an immortal-like aura. The old Taoist held a horsetail whisk and was meditating with his eyes closed, looking like a master. Seeing a center, he slowly opened his eyes, a trace of imperceptible contempt flashing through them. Patron Yi, is this the master you've invited? His voice carried a hint of arrogance. Yi Qingtian frowned and introduced Daoist Xuanji. This is the Master Chen I mentioned to you. Then he introduced me. Master Chen, this is Daoist Xuanji from Mount Longhu. He is a titan of the Daoist community in the country, proficient in the art of talismans. It turned out that Yi Qingtian and the others were not completely at ease, so they had invited another expert as a double insurance. A titan of the Daoist community? I glanced at Daoist Xuanji and smiled. He had just barely stepped over the threshold of qi refining, his sense of qi not even stable yet, and he dared to call himself a titan? Truly a frog in a well. My smile angered Daoist Xuanji, and he snorted coldly. Young man, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What's inside martial long is the most vicious sorcery from Southeast Asia. Nothing but the orthodox oneness thunder method of my Mount Longhu can break it. You're so young. What skills could you possibly have? It's better for you to watch from the side and not cause trouble. As he spoke, he took out a yellow talisman from his robes and began to chant. Heavenly thunder rushes, earthly thunder dims, exterminate the evil demon, as urgently as the statutes and ordinances command. He slapped the yellow talisman onto martial long. ZZT. The yellow talisman instantly self-ignited, turning to ash. But Marshal Long on a hospital bed not only showed no signs of improvement, but began to convulse violently, a trace of black blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Not good. Daoist Xuanji's face changed drastically. How can this be? How can my thunder talisman be useless? The medical instruments nearby also began to blare with piercing alarms. Marshal Long's vital signs began to drop sharply again. Quick, resuscitate him. The experts scrambled, and the scene descended into chaos. A bunch of incompetents. I shook my head and walked to the hospital bed. What are you doing? Don't touch Marshal Long. Yilinger tried to stop me nervously. I just glanced at her, and she felt an invisible force push her away, making her unable to get any closer. I extended a finger and pointed it at the center of Marshal Long's brow. A thread of pure, true essence was transferred into him. Marshal Long's convulsions stopped immediately. What sorcery? It's just a heart-devouring goo that was planted in him, I said faintly. Heart-devouring goo? Everyone was stunned. This thing feeds on a person's heart's blood. Once planted, the victim will die of heart failure within 7 days. Ordinary Taoist arts will only anger it, accelerating its devouring speed. I looked at the horrified Taoist Xuanji. That talisman of yours just now nearly cost him his life. Daoist Xuanji's face was ashen, so ashamed he wished the ground would swallow him whole. Then, Master, is there a way to break it? Yi Qingtian asked eagerly. Simple. I flicked my finger, and a wisp of golden flame emerged from my fingertip. Samadhi true fire. I slowly pressed this wisp of flame towards Marshal Long's chest. The flame passed through his skin and directly entered his heart. Ah, a shrill scream, not sounding human, came from within Marshal Long's body. Immediately after, under the terrified gazes of everyone present, a monster, pitch black all over, with countless tentacles, resembling a beetle, was forcibly expelled from Marshal Long's chest. The monster was burning with golden flames, writhing and struggling madly in the air. But within a few seconds, it was burned to ashes. After doing all this, I retracted my finger. On the hospital bed, Marshal Long let out a long groan and slowly opened his eyes. 18. Where am I? Marshal Long's voice, though weak, was resonant. He looked around in a daze, his gaze finally landing on me. Did you save me? He still remembered that while he was unconscious, it was as if he had fallen into endless darkness. It was a golden light that had pulled him back from the abyss. Marshal Long, you're awake. Yi Qingtian and the others excitedly gathered around. The hospital room was filled with joy. Only Taoist Xuanji stood in a corner, lost and dejected, looking at me as if he were looking at a god. Samadhi True Fire. That was definitely the legendary Samadhi True Fire. Who in the world is he? He murmured to himself, his Taoist heart on the verge of collapsing. I ignored the excitement of the crowd and simply said to Marshal Long, the goo worm has been removed, but your body is severely depleted and needs rest. I'll write you a prescription. Get the medicine according to it, and you'll fully recover in 3 days. I picked up a pen and paper, quickly wrote down a prescription, and handed it to Yi Qingtian. Yi Qingtian received it with both hands as if it were a priceless treasure. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. Marshal Long also struggled to sit up, one and about to me. My young friend, gratitude cannot be expressed in words. From now on, if there is anything you need with this old face of mine, there's almost nothing that cannot be done in all of Huaxia. His promise carried immense weight. It was equivalent to giving me a pass to do as I please in Huaxia. It was a small effort. No need to be so polite. I said faintly, I saved you for my own sake as well. Oh, Dragon Commander was a little surprised. I will remember your promise. I looked at him. I need China to use all its power to help me find 3 things. Meteoritic iron from beyond the heavens, 1,000-year-old lightning-struck wood, and 9 nether cold iron. These 3 items were the finest materials for refining a flying sword. To do a good job, one must first sharpen one's tools. Wanting to explore a perilous place like the Kunlun ruins without a suitable magical weapon was not an option. No problem. Dragon Commander agreed without hesitation. I'll have my people get on it immediately. Good. With the matter settled, I turned to leave. Master, please wait. Yi Qingtian hurried after me. Is there something else? Master, you have done a great service to the country. We have arranged a residence for you in the suburbs of the capital. Please, you must honor us with your presence. He was referring to the Daitai State Guest House, which was specially used to receive foreign heads of state. There's no need. I wouldn't be comfortable. I refused. Then, Master, why don't we stay at a hotel? Qin Feng suggested. I shook my head. Hotels were crowded with all sorts of people, unsuitable for cultivation. To the Su family, I suddenly said. The Su family? Qin Feng and Yi Linger were both stunned. The Su family of the capital was a top-tier wealthy family, on par with the Yi and Zhao families. Their power was intricate and their foundation deep. You have a connection to the Su family of the capital? Yi Linger couldn't help but ask. Ich glänzte her. My mother's surname is Su. 19. That's right. My mother, Su Wan, was the eldest daughter of the direct line of the capital's Su family. More than 20 years ago, against her family's wishes, she fell in love with my father, who was then a poor boy, and eloped with him to Jiangcheng. For this, the Su family was furious, announcing they would sever all ties with her and removing her name from the family registry. For over 20 years, they had shown no interest and made no inquiries. This time, in coming to the capital, besides the matter with the Dragon Commander, I also planned to, along the way, seek justice for my mother. The one who had forced my mother away back then was none other than my maternal grandfather, the current head of the Su family, Su Jinghua, and also that arrogant uncle of mine who had always looked down on my father, Su Wan. The motorcade soon stopped in front of a sprawling courtyard house in the capital, a vermilion gate with 2 majestic stone lions at the entrance. Everything proclaimed the nobility of the owner of this residence. This was the Su family mansion. Who goes there? This is a private residence. Leave at once." The guards at the gate saw our motorcade and immediately stepped forward to shout. Yilinger got out of the car and directly showed her military officer's ID. "Dragon Fong Special Ops on official business. Have your family head come out." Seeing the ID, the guard's expression changed. Not daring to be disrespectful, he hurried inside to report. Soon, a middle-aged man who looked like a butler walked out quickly. "May I ask which officer has graced us with their presence?" The butler's attitude was respectful. "Have Su Jinghua come out to see me." I got out of the car and said faintly. The butler was taken aback for a moment, sizing me up. When he saw my face clearly, his whole body trembled, and a trace of disbelief flashed in his eyes. You. He pointed at me, his lips trembling, unable to speak. "Uncle Fu, long time no see." I looked at him and smiled. This Uncle Fu was a long-serving member of the Su family. Back when my mother was still with the Su family, he had been the kindest to her. You are Miss Wan's son?" Uncle Fu's voice trembled. "Yes." I nodded. "The resemblance. It's too strong." Uncle Fu was so emotional that tears streamed down his old face. "You look exactly like your mother when she was young, as if carved from the same mold. Quick, come in." He enthusiastically took my arm, about to lead me inside. Just then, a cold voice came from the courtyard. "Stop. Uncle Fu, who gave you permission to bring riffraff into the Su family home?" A young man in a suit, about my age, but with a face full of arrogance, walked out. Behind him followed a bejeweled, sharp-tongued-looking middle-aged woman. "Young master, first madam, Uncle Fu uriedli bod. This is Miss Wan's son." "Miss Wan," the young man, my cousin, Su Mingzhi, sneered. "Does our Su family have anyone by that name?" "I only know that 20 years ago, some shameless woman betrayed the family for a poor boy and was kicked out. What? Now that she sees the Su family is powerful, she sends her bastard child back to wag his tail and beg." His words were extremely harsh. Behind me, Qin Feng instantly became furious. "Watch your damn mouth. How dare you insult my master?" He took a step forward, about to strike. I raised a hand, stopping him. I looked at Su Mingzhi, my eyes calm. "You say that again?" My eyes were calm. But in Su Mingzhi's eyes, this was a naked provocation. "So what if I say it again?" He stuck his neck out, his face full of disdain. "A bastard is a bastard." Smack! A crisp slap echoed. Su Mingzhi was sent flying, crashing into the stone lion by the gate, and spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with 2 broken teeth. Everyone was stunned. No one had seen how I'd moved. My son!" The middle-aged woman, my Aunt Li Qin, screamed and scrambled over to him. "Insolence! Utter insolence! Men, beat this little bastard to death for me," she shrieked hysterically, pointing at me. A dozen or so Su family guards immediately rushed out from the courtyard, surrounding me. These men were all retired Special Forces soldiers, their temples bulging, their auras formidable. "I'd like to see who dares." Yilinger shouted coldly, pulling out her service pistol, the dark muzzle aimed at the guards. The guards' faces changed. Wary of the gun, they dared not step forward. "Military?" Li Qin paused for a moment, then sneered. "Don't think you can run wild at the Su residence just because you have the military backing you. Let me tell you, my younger brother is the deputy commander of the war zone. If you dare touch my son today, I'll make you regret it," she declared, utterly fearless. The Su family held significant influence in military, political, and business circles. A mere major was nothing in her eyes. "Is that so?" I smiled, took out my phone, and dialed a number. "Hello, Dragon Marshal. It's me. My surname is Chun, give a name fan." On the other end of the line, Dragon Marshal's hearty laughter came through. "Master Chun, ha, I was just about to look for you. Your great kindness, Spare me the pleasantries." I interrupted him. "I've run into a bit of trouble. I'm at the gate of the Su family in the capital, blocked by a pack of dogs." "Oh, right, they also said they have a deputy commander of the war zone in the family, and that they'll make me regret it." I switched on the speakerphone as I spoke. My voice, and Dragon Marshal's voice from the phone, spread clearly across the entire scene. The expressions on Li Qin's and Su Mingzhi's faces changed instantly. "Draw, Dragon Marshal, the legendary guardian of Hua Xia." On the other end of the line, Dragon Marshal's laughter died abruptly. In its place was a coldness and fury like 10,000-year-old ice. The Su family? What audacity! Master Chun, please wait a moment. I will handle this immediately. The call ended. In less than a minute, Li Qin's phone began to ring frantically. With a trembling hand, she answered. From the other end came the enraged roar of her brother, that deputy commander of the war zone. Li Qin, you stupid woman. Who did you provoke? You almost got me fucking killed. Dragon Marshal himself gave the order to send me to a military tribunal. You. The phone slipped from Li Qin's hand. She collapsed to the ground, her face ashen. She knew that this time, the Su family had kicked an iron plate. No, they had kicked a divine mountain they could not possibly hope to move. Just then, a rush of hurried footsteps came from within the Su family's grand courtyard. An old man in a tang suit, exuding an aura of authority without being angry, and a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses and a refined, scholarly air, walked out quickly. It was the head of the Su family, Su Jinghua, and his son, Su Wan. My grandfather and my uncle. Dad, big brother. Look, Mingzhi, he's been beaten like this. Seeing them, Li Qin scrambled towards them as if she had seen her saviors. Seeing his son's miserable state, Su Wan flew into a rage. Who? Who did this? His gaze instantly locked onto me. When he saw my face clearly, he froze as if struck by lightning. You are. Su Jinghua saw me too. A flicker of emotion finally appeared on his placid, well-like face. Shock, complexity, and a trace of guilt flashed in his cloudy eyes. You are Wanner's son? He asked, his voice hoarse. It's been 20 years, I said, looking at him, my tone flat. Do you still remember you had a daughter named Su Wan? Su Jinhua's body trembled. His lips moved, but no words came out. Dad, why are you wasting your breath on him? Su Wan snapped back to his senses, pointing at me and roaring, He injured Mingzhi. We can't just let this go. Shut up. Su Jinhua spun around and slapped him hard across the face. You disgraceful son. Haven't you caused enough shame? Su Wan was stunned by the blow. Since he was a child, his father had never laid a finger on him. Dad, you. Get over here right now and apologize to this. To Master Chun. Su Sing would oath. What? Su Wan couldn't believe his ears. He had to apologize to this bastard? I told you to apologize. Su Jinghua trembled with rage, grabbing the cane beside him and striking him with it. I'll teach you to stir up trouble. I'll teach you for being so blind. You've completely disgraced the Su family. He wept as he struck. Just a moment ago, he had also received countless calls. From the military, from the political world. Every single one was from someone he had to look up to. And the content of those calls was all the same. The Su family had provoked someone they absolutely could not afford to provoke. That person was Dragon Commander Savior, a guest of honor to the Yi family, a living immortal that even the country's highest leaders had to treat with courtesy. Su Wan was beaten until he fled, covering his head. Li Qin and Su Mingzhi shivered in fear. They finally understood what a terrifying existence they had provoked. That's enough, I said faintly. Su Jinghua stopped, panting as he looked at me. Chen Fan. He began, wanting to say something. I didn't come here today to listen to your apologies. I interrupted him. I'm here for two things. First, my mother's name must be written back into the Su family's genealogy, and it must be in the first position. Second, everyone who forced my mother out back then must go to Jiangcheng, to my mother, and kowtow an apology. Especially you, I said, looking at Su Jinghua, word by word, Patriarch Su. My words exploded like thunder in the ears of the Su family members. Forcing them to kowtow to a woman who had been kicked out of the family? That was worse than killing them. You don't push it too far. Su Wan cried out defiantly. I ignored him, my gaze fixed on Su Jinghua. Do you agree, or not? Su Jinghua's expression was volatile, his fists clenched tightly. As the head of the family, he had never been forced like this. But when he saw my indifferent eyes, which seemed to see through everything, all his pride and dignity instantly crumbled. He knew that if he said no, then tomorrow, the Su family would cease to exist in the capital. He slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with defeat. I agree. It was as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. The matter of the Su family was settled. That afternoon, Su Jinghua took Su Wen's family on a private jet to Jiangcheng. As for how they kowtowed and apologized to my mother, how they repented with streaming tears, I had no interest in knowing. I only knew that the burden my mother had carried for years was finally lifted. That was enough. Meanwhile, under Yi Linger's arrangement, I moved into the #1 building of the Daitai State Guest House, the most luxurious one. Qin Feng also benefited, so excited he was like a child who had never seen the world. Master, this place is incredible. I heard only foreign presidents get to stay here. I ignored his fuss and walked straight into the study, taking out the bee skin map. Linger, help me find the specific location of the Death Valley in the Kunlun Mountains, I said to Yi Linger. After the incident with the Su family, Yi Linger's attitude towards me had transformed from defiance to complete and utter reverence. Yes, Master Chun. She immediately took out a military-grade laptop and began searching. Soon, the results appeared. Found it. She pointed to a red dot on the screen. The Nalangil Canyon in the Kunlun Mountains, also known as Death Valley, is one of the world's 5 famous death valleys. The magnetic field there is chaotic, the climate is unpredictable, and it's shrouded in thick fog year-round. Almost no people or livestock who enter ever come out alive. The military sent people to explore it many times, but they all suffered heavy losses. In the end, it was designated as a forbidden zone of life. A forbidden zone? I smiled. Perfect. I love breaking into forbidden zones. You're going there? Yi Linger asked nervously. Yes. I nodded. Get ready. We leave tomorrow. Yi Linger was stunned. I'm going too. Of course, I said, looking at her. Aren't you my guide? But it's very dangerous there. With me here, you won't die. My tone was calm, yet it carried a confidence that was impossible to resist. Yi Linger wanted to say more, but seeing my determined gaze, she could only swallow her words. The next morning, an armed helicopter landed on the lawn of the state guest house. Yi Linger, Qin Feng, and I boarded the aircraft. The helicopter flew west, across countless mountains and rivers. Several hours later, a continuous, snow-capped mountain range appeared before our eyes. The Kunlun Mountains. We had arrived. The helicopter landed on a flat area just outside the Valley of Death. As soon as we stepped off the aircraft, we felt a bone-chilling cold and a heart-pounding sense of oppression. The entrance to the valley was perpetually shrouded in a thick, gray fog, obscuring the situation within. On the ground, the skeletons of animals were scattered everywhere. Master, this place. It's so sinister. Qin Feng couldn't help but shiver. Stay close to me. Don't wander off. I instructed, taking the lead and walking into the valley. Yi Linger and Qin Feng followed closely behind me. The moment we entered the thick fog, we instantly lost our sense of direction. The surrounding scenery became blurry and indistinct. The compass and electronic devices in our hands all malfunctioned. Yi Linger suddenly let out a cry of alarm. I turned my head to see a venomous snake, as thick as an arm and brilliantly colored, slithering out from a crevice in the rock beneath her feet, striking viciously at her calf. Yi Linger, being a Special Forces soldier, reacted with extreme speed. She tried to dodge, but the snake's speed was like a flash of lightning. There was simply no time. It was about to bite. I flicked my finger. A burst of energy, faster than the snake's strike, accurately hit its head. Splat! The snake's head exploded on the spot, turning into a mist of blood. Yi Linger broke out in a cold sweat, her face pale. Thank you. Be careful. Everything here is tainted with a trace of ancient, savage energy. They are far more formidable than the beasts outside. I reminded them. We continued deeper into the valley. The farther we went, the thicker the fog became, and the dimmer the light grew. Strange plants and animals we had never seen before began to appear around us. Along the way, we were attacked several times. There were man-eating flowers that could spit venom and giant lizards the size of tigers. But I dealt with them all effortlessly. Qin Feng and Yi Linger went from being nervous and afraid at the beginning to becoming numb later on. In their eyes, I, their master, grandmaster, was practically an omnipotent god. After walking for about half a day, the scene before us suddenly opened up. The thick fog dissipated, and a massive basin appeared before us. In the center of the basin was a bottomless lake. The lake's water was as black as ink. By the lake grew a towering, ancient tree. On the tree hung several crystal-clear fruits, emitting an enticing aroma. Spiritual fruit. My breath caught in my throat, my eyes erupting with ecstatic light. Those were undoubtedly the legendary treasures of heaven and earth. I could feel the immense spiritual energy contained within those few fruits. If I ate just one, I could definitely break through on the spot and form the golden core. Just as I was about to step forward and pick them, roar! An earth-shattering roar came from the inky black lake. Immediately after, a colossal head slowly rose from the water. The head resembled that of a flood dragon, with a single horn on its head, crimson eyes, and a mouth full of sharp fangs. Its head alone was larger than our helicopter. An ancient, tyrannical aura instantly enveloped the entire valley. A flood dragon. Yilinger and Qin Feng's legs went weak with fright, and they collapsed directly onto the ground. That was an ancient beast that had lived for an unknown number of years. Its power was likely comparable to a late-stage golden core cultivator. A guardian beast? Looking at the behemoth before me, not only was I unafraid, but I licked my lips, a fighting spirit rising in my eyes. Excellent timing. I'll use you to test my newly learned divine art. I took a step forward, my body slowly levitating into the air, facing the flood dragon from a distance. Human, you have trespassed upon my domain. The flood dragon spoke in human tongue, its voice like rolling thunder. It opened its cavernous mouth, and a black water arrow, like a high-pressure water jet, shot towards me. The water arrow contained a deadly poison and powerful corrosive properties. Wherever it passed, even the air sizzled and corroded. A petty trick. I snorted coldly, neither dodging nor evading. I simply extended my right hand and made a grasping motion in the air towards the water arrow. Freeze! A miraculous scene occurred. The unstoppable water arrow came to an abrupt halt less than a meter away from me. It was as if time itself had been frozen. What? A trace of shock flashed through the flood dragon's massive eyes. Now it's my turn. A cold smile played on my lips. 5 thunder rectification, summon. I formed hand seals and chanted an incantation. In an instant, dark clouds gathered above the valley, and lightning flashed and thunder roared. Purple bolts of lightning, as thick as an arm, weaved through the clouds, emitting terrifying crackling sounds. Strike! I stretched out my hand, pointed down at the flood dragon below, and unleashed my power. Boom! 10,000 bolts of lightning struck as one. Countless streaks of purple divine lightning, like a heavenly punishment descending upon the world, formed a colossal net of electricity that came crashing down on the flood dragon. Roar! Sensing the fatal threat, the flood dragon let out an earth-shattering roar. Its enormous body shot out from the lake, bringing with it monstrous waves. A layer of black scales instantly covered its entire body. It wanted to resist, or to flee. But in the face of heavenly might, all struggles were futile. The net of lightning fell. Boom! With a deafening crash, it was as if the entire Kunlun mountain range trembled. The blinding purple light made Yilinger and Qin Feng instinctively shut their eyes. When they opened them again, the battle was over. On the surface of the lake, the once invincible ancient beast had been reduced to a charred corpse. The air was filled with the aroma of roasted meat. One strike, just a single strike, had instantly killed an ancient flood dragon comparable to a late-stage golden core cultivator. Yilinger and Qin Feng were completely numb. Their understanding of the world had been repeatedly shattered and reshaped today. I slowly descended from the air, my face slightly pale. This 5 thunders rectification was one of my ultimate techniques. With my current level of cultivation, it was still a bit of strain to use, but the effect was surprisingly good. I walked to the edge of the lake and carefully plucked the few spirit fruits. There were 3 in total. Each one contained a vast amount of spiritual energy, enough to drive any chi refining stage cultivator into a frenzy. Master, what kind of fruit is this? It smells so good. Qin Feng couldn't help but swallow his saliva. This is the dragon essence fruit, a result of absorbing 1,000 years of that flood dragon's essence, I explained. Eating it can thoroughly cleanse your body and prolong your life. I handed one to Jiangcheng. Your foundation is too weak. Eat half for now, and refine the rest slowly when we get back. Huh, for me. Jiangcheng was stunned, unable to believe it. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. When he came to his senses, he was so excited he became incoherent. I handed another one to Yiling. You have a special constitution. You can eat this whole one. Me? Yilinger was also taken aback. I can't accept this, it's too valuable. Take it. My tone left no room for argument. Yilinger looked at me, a warmth spreading through her heart. She bit her lip and accepted it. Thank you, she said softly, her cheeks slightly flushed. Without hesitation, I swallowed the last fruit myself. Boom! A majestic torrent of spiritual energy, like a mountain flood or a tsunami, exploded within my body. I immediately sat down cross-legged, circulating my cultivation technique to guide this energy, and charged at the bottleneck within me. The barrier of the perfected foundation establishment stage was as fragile as a piece of paper before this domineering spiritual energy. It was broken in an instant. All the true essence in my dantian began to compress and spin wildly. Finally, it condensed into a golden core. It was only the size of a longan fruit, yet it was dazzlingly bright, radiating a seven-colored light. The moment the golden core was formed, I felt as if I had become one with this world. My divine sense could easily cover a radius of 100 miles. My power was more than 10 times stronger than before. My lifespan had skyrocketed directly to 500 years. This was the golden core stage. I slowly opened my eyes, a golden light flashing past them. I stood up, feeling better than ever before. Congratulations, Master, on forming the golden core and attaining eternal fortune. Jiangcheng had already refined half of the dragon essence fruit. His entire demeanor had changed. His skin had become translucent, and his eyes shone with a bright light. His cultivation had also soared from that of an ordinary person directly to the third level of qi refining. Yilinger had also eaten the dragon essence fruit, and her transformation was even greater. The pure yin energy within her body was fully awakened. She seemed to be enveloped in a holy radiance, beautiful beyond description. Her cultivation had reached the 9th level of qi refining, just one step away from foundation establishment. Let's go. I looked at them and smiled. Our business here is done. It's time to head back. Oh, and bring the flood dragon's corpse with us. Its scales can be refined into a magic robe. Its tendons can be refined into magic treasures. Its flesh and blood are great supplements. We can't let it go to waste. We returned, fully laden with spoils. After returning to the capital, I immediately entered seclusion. I was going to use the flood dragon's materials and the heavenly treasures I found in the national treasury to forge my own flying sword. Yilinger and Jiangcheng were sent out by me to consolidate their cultivation. 3 days later, a clear sword cry resounded in my room. A stream of silver light shot towards the sky, circling and dancing in the air before transforming into a 3-foot green-edged sword and landing in my hand. The body of the sword shimmered with a radiant light, exuding a piercing coldness. A high-grade magic weapon, it was done. I named it Startling Swan. With a flying sword, my strength surged once again. Now, I was confident that I could even hold my own against an old monster at the nascent soul stage. After I came out of seclusion, Dragon Marshal and Yi Qingtian paid me a personal visit. When they saw Yilinger, who had been completely transformed and looked like a fairy descended to the mortal world, and Jiangcheng, whose temperament had changed drastically and whose cultivation had greatly improved, they were once again deeply shaken by my abilities. Master Chun, we have found the item you requested. Yi Qingtian handed over a box. I opened it to find a fist-sized piece of metal lying quietly inside. It was entirely black and emanated a faint, cold glow. Netherworld cold iron. Not bad. I nodded in satisfaction. Is this the only thing you found? In response to the master, we have searched all the records for the meteoric iron from beyond the heavens and the 1,000-year-old lightning-struck wood, but we have found no trace of them. Yi Qingtian said, ashamed. I was not surprised. These two items were treasures that one could only hope to stumble upon, not actively seek out. It seemed my only option was to try my luck in Shenangjia and the East Sea abyssal ruins. No matter, I put the netherworld cold iron away. Master, there is one more thing, Dragon Marshal began, his expression somewhat grave. You previously asked me to investigate the mastermind behind the curse placed upon you. We have a lead. Oh, my interest was piqued. According to our intelligence, the heart-devouring goo originated from a malevolent organization in Southeast Asia called the Black Witch Cult. And the ones who purchased the goo worm from them were a mysterious organization in M country, composed of the world's top financial magnates, called the Freemasons. The Freemasons? I raised an eyebrow. Yes. Dragon Marshal nodded. This organization wields immense power, secretly manipulating the world's economic and political course. They seem to have always harbored hostility towards China. A while ago, wasn't the Jiangcheng group in Jiangcheng also a target of their commercial attacks? A thought stirred within me. Jiangcheng group, Su Wanqing. This name, which I'd almost forgotten, resurfaced in my mind. Speaking of which, it had been over a month since I came to the capital, and I hadn't contacted her. I wonder how she was doing now. Why are they targeting me? I asked. It is unclear. Dragon Marshal shook his head, but we suspect it may be related to your performance at the bidding conference. The power you displayed made them feel fear and a sense of threat. So, they wanted to strike first and eliminate you before you could become a bigger problem. Is that so? A cold, murderous glint flashed in my eyes. Since they enjoy playing games so much, then I shall play along. It just so happens that my newly forged flying sword has yet to taste blood. 26. I did not immediately go looking for trouble with the Freemasons. I knew that such a vast and deeply entrenched organization would not be easy to deal with. Since they dared to make a move against me, they must have more tricks up their sleeve. The most pressing matter at hand was to increase my own strength as quickly as possible. I decided my next destination would be Shenangjia. Before I left, on a whim, I gave Su Wanqing a call. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. Hello. Su Wanqing's weary and hoarse voice came from the other end. It's me, Chun Fan. Her voice instantly became excited and joyous. You finally decided to contact me. I thought you would never speak to me again. Her voice carried a hint of a wrong sob. Have you been well lately? I asked. No, she answered honestly. Not at all. The company has encountered a major problem. Ever since we secured the project in the Southern District, we have been relentlessly suppressed by a mysterious overseas capital. Our stock price has plummeted. Our partners have terminated their contracts one after another, and they have stolen our core technology through despicable means. Now, the company is on the verge of bankruptcy. I can't hold on much longer. As she spoke, she began to cry. The Ice Queen CEO, a formidable figure in the business world, was now crying like a helpless child. I fell silent. It was the Freemasons. Unable to deal with me directly, they had started to go after the people around me, using this method to force me to show myself. Truly, what a brilliant move. Where are you? I asked. I'm at the company. On the rooftop. My heart tightened. Don't do anything foolish. Wait for me. I hung up the phone, a cold glint flashing my eyes. Jinghong, with a thought, a silver flying sword instantly appeared beneath my feet. I stepped onto it, transforming into a streak of light that shot into the sky, rocketing towards Jiangcheng City, leaving behind the stunned crowd at the state guest house. Sword flight. This was the true power of an immortal. The direct distance from the capital to Jiangcheng City was over 1,000 kilometers. A normal plane would take 2 hours. But for me, it was merely a quarter of an hour's effort. When I descended like a silver meteor onto the rooftop of the Jiangcheng Group's skyscraper, Su Wanqing was standing alone, desolate, at the edge. The evening wind blew through her long hair and clothes. Her beautiful face was etched with despair and exhaustion. Hearing the sound behind her, she turned. When she saw me descending from the sky on a flying sword, she was completely dumbfounded. She rubbed her eyes, thinking she was hallucinating. Chun Fan. I told you I'd be back. I put away the flying sword and walked to her side. I'm sorry. She lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. I just came up for some air. I didn't speak, just reached out and pulled her into my arms. Her body stiffened for a moment. Then she began to sob uncontrollably in my embrace, as if to release all the grievances and pressure from this period. I gently patted her back. Don't be afraid. I'm here. After a long time, she finally stopped crying and looked up from my arms, her eyes red. They were bullying me too much. I know. I nodded. The Freemasons. You? How did you know? She was surprised. They were after me, too, I said faintly, looking at the distant sky. Because of you? Yes. I'm sorry. I got you into trouble, she said, blaming herself. No, I shook my head. I'm the one who got you into trouble. If it weren't for me, they wouldn't have come for you. Seeing her haggard face, a trace of guilt rose in my heart. Don't worry. I stroked her hair. From now on, no one will be able to bully you again. I promise. My voice was soft, yet it carried a domineering confidence that could make the world bow. Su Wanqing stared at me, mesmerized. She knew her god had returned. The next day, a bombshell shook the entire Chinese business world. The nearly bankrupt Jiangcheng Group suddenly announced it had received a strategic investment of 100 billion from a national sovereign fund. At the same time, the military also announced a deep partnership with Jiangcheng Group to jointly develop next-generation cutting-edge technology. Immediately after, Qin Sihai, representing the entire underground world of Jiangcheng City, publicly declared that anyone who dared to touch a single hair on Jiangcheng Group's head would be making an enemy of his entire world. Instantly, Jiangcheng Group's stock price soared crazily. Those partners who had kicked them when they were down and terminated their contracts were filled with regret, begging, and pleading to cooperate again. And those overseas capitalists who had been secretly acquiring Jiangcheng's shares in a hostile takeover attempt were, overnight, crushed by a mysterious force, losing everything. Behind all of this was a single phone call I made. A call to Dragon Commander. In the office, Su Wanqing felt like she was in a dream. One day, she was on the verge of bankruptcy. The next, her company had become a behemoth backed by the state itself. This transition from hell to heaven left her feeling a little lost. She looked at me, sitting on the sofa, leisurely sipping tea, her eyes filled with complex emotions. She knew this was all because of him. Thank you, she said sincerely. There's no need for thanks between us. I smiled at her. Then, what are we now? She asked cautiously, mustering her courage. I put down my teacup and walked over to her. I didn't say a word, just lowered my head and kissed her lips. She was stunned at first, then responded with fervent passion. The kiss was long and deep, as if to make up for 3 years of longing and neglect. When the kiss ended, she was breathless, her pretty face flushed, beautiful beyond description. Do you understand now? I asked with a smile. She nodded and buried her head deep in my chest. Outside the window, the sun was bright. Everything was just right. Solving the Jiangcheng Group's crisis was just a temporary fix. The Freemasons were like a venomous snake hidden in the dark. If not completely destroyed, it would sooner or later bite again. That night, I took Su Wanqing, Qin Feng, and Yi Linger on a private jet and flew directly to Country M. I wanted to see for myself what kind of monsters and demons this so-called Freemasonry was. On the plane, Dragon Commander sent me a top-secret file about the Freemasons. The file showed that the core members of the Freemasons were the 13 richest families in the world. They achieved their goal of controlling the world by controlling global finance, energy, and media. And their headquarters was on a private island in Country M called Liberty Island. It was said that the island was heavily guarded, comparable to a military base. Moreover, the Freemasons seemed to be keeping a group of superhumans with extraordinary powers as their thugs. A little interesting. I looked at the file, and a cold smile touched the corner of my mouth. The plane landed at a secret military base in Country M. A blonde, blue-eyed colonel in a military uniform was already waiting there. Master Chun, welcome to Country M. The colonel gave me a standard military salute. By the highest order of the Pentagon, we will fully cooperate with your operation. It seemed that Dragon Commander had already made arrangements in advance. The location of Liberty Island. I got straight to the point. It's here. The colonel pointed to a nautical chart. It's about 300 nautical miles from us. Good. I nodded. Give me the fastest speedboat. Tonight, I will flatten Liberty Island. The night was as black as spilled ink. A black, ghost-like speedboat, like an arrow released from a bow, sped across the turbulent sea. On the speedboat, there were only me and the three of them, Su Wanqing, Qin Feng, and Yi Ling. Soon, a brightly lit island appeared before our eyes. That was Liberty Island. Stop. The area ahead is a private island. Stop your boat immediately for inspection. A harsh warning came from the island. At the same time, a dozen patrol boats surrounded us from all directions. The patrol boats were armed with heavy machine guns, their dark muzzles aimed at us. Master, what should we do? Qin Feng was a little nervous. Sit tight, I said lightly, and then placed my hand on the engine of the speedboat. A trace of pure, true essence was transferred into it. Buzz! The engine of the speedboat let out a roar as if it was overloaded. In the next second, the entire speedboat, as if equipped with a rocket booster, instantly increased its speed several times. It turned into a black bolt of lightning, directly breaking through the encirclement of the patrol boats and rushing towards the island's pier. Fire! Sink it for me! An angry roar came from the patrol boats. Da-da-da-da. The heavy machine guns spewed out angry tongues of flame. Countless bullets, like raindrops, poured down on us. Su Wanqing and Yi Linger were so frightened that their faces turned pale. I stood at the bow of the boat, motionless. I just let out a cold snort. An invisible barrier instantly enveloped the entire speedboat. All the bullets, when they came within 3 meters of us, seemed to hit an invisible wall and were deflected, falling into the sea. What? What is this? The people on the patrol boats were dumbfounded. They wanted to fire again, but it was too late. Our speedboat had already rushed onto the pier at an incredible speed, knocking over countless obstacles before stopping. As soon as we got off the boat, hundreds of fully armed mercenaries surrounded us from all directions. A burly white man in a black trench coat, with a cigar in his mouth, walked out. He looked at us with a cruel smile on his face. Orientals, welcome to hell. As soon as he finished speaking, behind him, a dozen people in strange costumes walked out. Some of them were burning with flames. Some of them could stretch their bodies like rubber, and some of them could shoot red lasers from their eyes. They were the superhumans kept by the Freemasons. Kill them. The burly white man gave the order. A dozen superhumans attacked us at the same time. Fireballs, lasers, ice cones. All kinds of abilities that had only been seen in movies came at us from all directions. Su Wanqing and the others were so scared they forgot to breathe. I stood at the very front, looking at these so-called superpowers, and shook my head. A grain of rice, yet it dares to shine. I stretched out a hand and gently clenched it in front of me. Space freeze. In an instant, the whole world seemed to stand still. Everyone's movements were frozen in that moment. All the attacks were stopped in midair. Only I could still move freely. I walked step by step to the superhuman who was on fire. Playing with fire? I smiled and blew gently at him. Whoosh! The flames on his body were instantly extinguished. Then a golden flame, only the size of a fingernail, landed on him. Ah! A blood-curdling scream pierced the night sky. That powerful fire-type superhuman, under the watchful eyes of all, was burned alive to ashes. I released the spatial confinement. Everyone could move again, but looking at the pile of ashes on the ground, they were all scared out of their wits. Devil! The burly white man's cigar fell to the ground. Now it's your turn. I looked at them as if I were looking at a group of dead men. 10 minutes later, there was not a single person left standing on the island. I led Su Wanqing and the others into the magnificent golden palace at the center of the island. Inside the palace, the patriarchs of the 13 core families of the Freemasons were sitting around a round table, trembling. They had seen everything that happened outside through the surveillance monitors. "Oh, who on earth are you?" A white-haired old man in the lead asked, his voice trembling. "Who I am is not important." I walked to the head of the table and sat down. "What's important is that from this day forward, I call the shots in this world." I looked at them like a god gazing down upon his believers. "Do you have any objections?" The 13 top tycoons who controlled the world's economic lifelines scrambled to kneel on the ground, kowtowing to me in worship. We are willing to serve you as our master. Forever loyal. The end. The Freemasons had submitted. This mysterious organization that had secretly controlled the world for centuries welcomed its new master. And I became the true king of this planet. I returned to Jiangcheng with Su Wanqing. Jiangcheng Group, with the help of the Freemasons, became a global business empire. And Su Wanqing went from being a $100 billion female CEO to the world's richest woman. We held a wedding of unparalleled grandeur. The most powerful people from all over the world came to congratulate us. Dragon Commander, Ye Ving Tian, Ving Sihai. Everyone I knew came. At the wedding, Su Wanqing, in her pure white wedding dress, was as beautiful as a celestial fairy. She looked at me, her eyes filled with an unbreakable tenderness and happiness. Chen Fan, thank you. Silly girl. I tapped her nose. I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for waiting 3 years for me. After the wedding, I took her traveling all over the world. We went to Shenangjia and found the legendary 1,000-year-old lightning-struck wood. We went to the Guishu of the East Sea and found meteoric iron from beyond the heavens at the bottom of the 10,000-fathom sea. I used these materials to reforge my Jinghong sword into a true immortal sword. Qin Feng became my chief disciple, managing all worldly affairs for me. Yilinger became my honorary disciple and stayed in the military, becoming the new generation's female god of war of Huaxia. As for me, I took Su Wanqing and moved back into the cloud-top heavenly palace. We live a life like that of immortal companions. Occasionally, I would take her flying on my sword, soaring above the 9 heavens to watch the sunrise and sunset and the turning of the stars. Husband, what do you think is behind those stars? She asked curiously, leaning against my chest. I looked at the profound universe and smiled. There are vaster worlds there. Then can we go see them someday, okay? Okay. I lowered my head and kissed her on the lips. Wait for me to shatter this void, and I will take you to our sea of stars. The end.